Dear grade 10 students, welcome to our English class. Our lesson today is Grammar, Unit 6, F Conditionals, Types 0, 1, and 2. Student book, page 78, workbook, page 67. Be ready and let's start. And now, let's start with the objectives. Our objectives for today are: Number 1 is to identify the different types of if conditionals, types 0, 1, and 2. Number 2 is to differentiate between the different types of conditionals in terms of structure and use. And finally, is to apply the rules learned to rewrite sentences using conditionals. Let's begin. Now let's read the following sentences to find out how are these sentences alike. How are they different? Zero type. For example, when you say, if or when you heat ice, it melts. The first type is when you say, if I finish my homework early, I will watch TV. And type 2, if I had $1 million, I would buy a house. Now I want you to pause the video for a while, read these sentences, and reread the verbs, and try to answer these two questions. Now let's start with if conditional type 0. Please open your student book, pages 78, exercise A. Read the examples and answer the questions. If or when ice melts, it turns into water. Does this sentence refer to something that's likely to happen or to a general truth or fact? Now pause the video for a while, reread the sentence, and answer this question. Now let's answer together. If or when ice melts, it turns into water. So it's a truth. It's a fact. When ice melts, it doesn't change into gas, for example, but it turns into water. So the zero conditional is used to talk about general truth or facts. Now let's read the following example. If you mix red and blue, you get purple. What do you notice about this sentence? How many clauses do we have here? Can you answer? That's correct. We have two clauses. The first clause is called F clause or the conditional clause. The second one is you get purple, and it's called main clause or the result clause, and we separate them by using a comma. So is it possible to start with the main clause? That's right. We can start with the main clause. Now please pause the video and try to rewrite this sentence starting with the main clause. Welcome back. So when we start with the main clause, the sentence will be, you get purple if you mix red and blue. So, can you notice the difference? The difference here is that we started with the main clause and if clause without adding a comma. And now, let's know more about the rules of if conditional type 0. Let's read the examples to complete the rule below. Before reading the examples, I want you to remember that conditional sentences type 0 are used to talk about general truth or facts. And now, how to form a sentence using F conditional type 0. Let's read the examples together. If water reaches 100 degrees, it boils. So, what do you notice about the verbs here? Reaches and boils. The second example is, if or when you press the button, the machine starts. And what do you notice about the verb press and starts? Finally, if or when you touch a fire, you get burned. So the verbs here, touch and get. What do you notice about all of these verbs? Are they in the present or in the past? Now, I want you to pause the video for a while and reread the sentences to fill in the gaps. And now, let's start. What's the tense we shall use with F clause? Can you answer? That's correct. It is the present simple. And how about the main clause? We also use that's correct, the present simple. Now, I want you to pause the video for a while. Try to write some sentences using F conditional type 0. And now, let's go to F conditional type 1. Student book page 78, exercise A. Let's read this sentence and try to answer these two questions. If my neighbors grow bad corn, I will grow bad corn too. Now, does this sentence refer to the present and future or the past? Question 3. Does the speaker think that this is likely to happen? Now pause the video for a while, reread this sentence, and try to answer these two questions. Welcome back. Let's answer these two questions together. Does this sentence refer to the present or future or past? Let's see. It refers to the present future. If my neighbors grow bad corn, I will grow bad corn too. We have here will, which refers to the future. Question 3. Does the speaker think that this is likely to happen? Yes, he does. Now let's find out more examples. If you don't hurry, you will miss the bus. If you see my mother, give her this book. And now let's find out more about the rules of F conditional type 1. Please go to your student book page 78, exercise B. And now let's read the examples again to complete the rule. Before we start, I want you to remember that conditional sentences type 1 express something which is likely to happen in the present or the future. It means that type conditionals refer to a possible condition and its probable result. So, how to form a sentence using F conditional type 1? Let's read the examples and try to find the answer. If it rains, I will stay at home. If you have enough time, finish this letter. Now I want you to pause the video, reread these two examples, and try to fill in the gap. Welcome back again. So, which tense do we use with F clause in type 1? That's correct. We use the present simple. How about the main clause? So, that's right. We use will plus infinitive, or we use modal verbs such as can, must, may, might, should, plus the base form of the verb. We can also use the imperative as in example 2. Finish this letter. And now, let's go to F conditional type 2. Please go to your student book page 78, exercise A. Let's read the sentence together. If I were a scientist, I would try to find a solution to the problem of global warming. Now, let's answer these questions. Is the speaker a scientist? Is it likely that the speaker will find a solution? And number 6, does the sentence refer to the present and future or to the past? Now I want you to pause the video for a while. Try to answer these questions. So, let's answer the questions together. Question number 4. Is the speaker a scientist? He says, if I were a scientist. So the correct answer is no, he isn't a scientist. He is imagining or dreaming to be a scientist. Is it likely that the speaker will find a solution? So, can you say the answer? No, he isn't. Since he is not a scientist, he can't find a solution. And question number 6. Does the sentence refer to the present and future or to the past. It refers to the present and the future. Now, let's read one more sentence. If he fell off the stairs, he would hurt himself. Now let's know more about the rules of F conditional type 2. Please go to your student book, page 78, exercise B. Let's read the examples again to complete the rule. Remember that conditional sentences type 2 express something imaginary, unreal, or unlikely to happen in the present or the future. And now how to form a sentence using F conditional type 2. We use F plus the past symbol. Now let's read the following sentences to find out what can we use in the main clause of F conditional type 2. Sentence number 1. If you went to bed earlier, you wouldn't be so tired. Number 2. If coronavirus disappeared, I could hang out safely with my friends. Now I want you to pause the video for a while. Try to reread these two sentences and fill in the gap with the correct word. Now, let's answer together. To form a sentence using F conditional type 2, we use the past symbol with the F clause and we use, that's correct, would, could plus the base form of the verb. Now I want you to pause the video for a while. Try to write sentences using F conditional type 2. Now let's find out more about the rules of F conditional type 2. We have an exception here. Let's read the following sentence to find out about the exception. If I were an astronaut, I would travel in a spaceship. Now let's look at F clause. What do you notice about the verb used here with the pronoun I? That's correct. It's were. And we usually use was with the pronoun I. We say I was. But here this is an exception. In conditional sentences type 2, where is often used instead of was in the F clause in all persons. For example, when you say, if I were rich, I would live in a huge house. We use if I were you also to express an opinion or to give advice. For example, if I were you, I wouldn't buy it. Now also remember that when the F clause comes before the main clause, the two clauses are separated by a comma. Remember this rule well. And now let's talk about unless, which equals F not. Unless can be used instead of F not. For example, when you say you won't reach your goal unless you work hard. So if I want to replace unless with F, the sentence will be, you won't reach your goal if you do not work hard. Another example, if you study hard, you will pass this test. Now I want you to pause the video for a while and to try to use the word unless instead of F in this sentence. Now, let's find out the answer together. You won't pass this test unless you study hard. This is the correct answer. And now let's talk about provided that, which equals F. They both have the same use and the same structure. So the conjunction provided that can interchangeably be used to mean F or on condition that. Let's take some examples. She will help me provided that I promise to do her homework. We can also say she will help me if I promise to do her homework. You can borrow the car provided that you promise to drive carefully. We can also say you can borrow the car if you promise to drive carefully. Now, can you pause the video for a while and try to write sentences using the word provided that? Now, let's check our understanding. Please go to your student book, page 78, exercise C. Complete the dialogue with the correct form of the verbs in brackets. A. What would you do if you suddenly... And the verb here is when. A lot of money and became rich. Note something here, that this is an unreal situation. It's an imaginary situation. So, which type shall we use here? That's correct. It's type 2. And I have here, what would you do if? You remember, which tense do we use with F clause? In type 2? That's right. It is the past. So the past of win is won. Now, I want you to pause the video for a while and to try to answer the rest of the questions. Welcome back. Let's answer the rest of the questions together. Well, if I space rich, I space travel. And remember also that this is an unreal situation. So, it means that we are going to use which type? That's correct, type 2. If I were rich, I would travel. I love traveling. When you space you so much about other countries and cultures without realizing it. And if you notice here that this is a general fact or truth. So, when we express or talk about general facts, which type shall we use? That's correct. It's 0 type, which is present simple and present simple. So when you travel, you learn so much about other countries. That's true, but if I... That's right, a lot of money. This is an imaginary situation. So, but if I had a lot of money, I would start my own business. Like what? Well, if I the chance to do anything I liked. So, this is an imaginary situation. So, if I had the chance to do something I liked, I would open. And notes here, he said, my dream is to become a famous chef. It means he's talking about his dreams. So it's an unreal or imaginary situation. A chef, that's impossible. You don't know how to cook anything. I can easily learn anything if I can easily. Can. So you remember the type of this conditional? That's correct. I can easily learn anything if I decide to. This is type 1. If I became a chef, I would be very successful, I'm sure. I'm sure of one thing. You want to become a chef unless you take some courses. So start studying harder. Start. This is imperative form. If you want to get into a college. Another activity in your workbook, page 67, exercise B. Expand the notes into sentences. Use conditional sentences type 1 and type 2. Number 1, if I be you, I buy blue one. So what do you notice about these words? They are here to express, can you say? That's right, to give an advice. So which type do we use to give an advice? That's correct, it's type 2. So the correct answer is, if I were you, I would buy the blue one. Now I want you to pause the video and try to answer the other question. Now, let's start. If Jasim not hurry, miss bus and be late school. So the correct answer is, if he doesn't hurry, he will miss the bus and he will be late for the school. That's correct. Thank you for listening.